Hi, good morning.
Hi.
How is everyone?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good,
Good
All
morning,
right.
sir.
Good morning.
All right. So we are on our second session. And what I'd like to go through is just to recap on the chapter one. So I've given everyone feedback on the chapter one. I hope all of you have gone through it and you are doing your changes. Yes? Is that all okay? So shall we do a round robin quickly to find out how the situation is with everyone? Jalia, would you like to start? Chapter one, were you able to do the changes and everything? Is that
Uh,
complete now?
yeah, it's there's a small things. I want to reduce my word count. That's all. The other
Yes.
things are all done.
Yeah. So why I'm emphasizing a lot on the word count is now when you go to write your methodology and most important your discussion chapter, you
Yeah.
need the maximum amount of words for those.
Mhm.
All right.
Right.
So you get less marks for the introduction.
Yeah.
The most marks you're going to get is for your discussion.
Mm.
Right. So your chapters 4 and 5 are really important. So
Mhm.
if you put too much words in your chapter one, you're taking away from the other chapters because you have a total word count limit also for the total research, right? So that's why write it well, but be concise. Now, even on your when you're doing the Word document, when you're editing it on Word, you can ask for grammar suggestions or syntax suggestions so that you can try to reduce the words there. Sometimes we overwrite sentences, we put too many words into it. So try
Mm.
to keep it very focused, right?
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Sure.
so I know all of you have different styles, and I'll just give you a general comment. Um, your chapter one, as long as you follow the your research proposal that you gave, and you have the titles, the subheadings according to that, it's easy for you to fill in. Now, what I did was I used that uh, the document that next group shares, the handy guide to the research. Have you gone through that? That is going to be like your mini Bible for these 3 months. Okay. So keep that and follow that guide. The sub chapters, how you put in the sub chapters, how you create your notes, the appendix, all of that, follow that guide so that you know, because in each part they'll tell you how many words you should roughly have. So even in a chapter, when you do a chapter introduction, the chapter introduction shouldn't be more than 200 words. Then you go to the next part, and when you are explaining each chapter, there's a certain word count that you should keep. All right. Now I wanted to see your conceptual framework because today we are going to go into the literature review, and we're going to discuss the literature review chapter. Now, what I said about the conceptual framework was I wanted to see it by 7th. So today is the 10th. I think only a few of you have submitted. I yet to receive a few more. Lahiru, you are next today, is it? Good. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So now let's go around again. Jalia, your chapter one is okay, under control. Yeah. Also keep in mind, follow the guidelines in terms of Harvard referencing. Follow the guidelines in terms of the page setup. Don't deviate from that. Okay, so don't put fancy borders around the pages and don't use any other font type. Stick to Arial. 12 point for the heading, 10 point for the text, body text. Stick to those guidelines. Is it 12 point for the body text? 12 for the body text, right? Or 10, is it? Yeah. Stick to those. Stick to those. Don't deviate from that and follow the Harvard referencing method. There are certain things that you have to keep in mind, which I also learned when I was doing my research. How you reference when you have multiple researchers who have issued a journal article, how you include all of them. So when you put it at the beginning of a sentence, when you put it in text in the middle of the sentence, when you refer to it at the end of the sentence. So there are different ways of putting it. Okay. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. I'll show you a sample a little later. Let's go around and see the rest. So Tilini, how are you on the chapter 1? Changes done?
Yes, sir. I did the changes.
Okay, so you included the subheadings like I told you?
No subheadings.
Now
I'm
in
not.
your
Sorry.
chapter 1, you have to do that. Like you will have chapter 1.1 introduction, chapter 1.2, like that, the
Okay.
business problem. Then you're saying the research problem. Then your research aims, research objective. Like that, you have to have those subheadings. Everyone, make sure you maintain that structure for the chapter 1. Okay?
Okay.
That's important. All right. Just give me 1 minute, please. Getting a call from office. Sorry about that. Okay. So Tilini, that has to be done. I think in your one, you didn't have the subheadings, right?
Yes, sir. The initial one was I had the subheadings, but I merged that. So
Oh, okay,
I'll
okay.
do
So
needful.
yeah,
Yeah.
have that, right? Because it gives a lot of clarity also. I'll show you a sample a little later, right? So that all of you can have a look at it. Kanchana, would you like to say your chapter 1 is okay?
Okay, sir, you are told to reduce the word count. So I
Yes.
have reduced it.
Yeah, so some of the places I found it like there's a bit of duplication in what you're saying. You're repeating certain things. So
Yeah,
keep it very simplified. And what you're going to say under one subheading, don't say that in another one also, because that's where the word count increases. All right?
okay. Okay, sir.
Right. So I think you have been given, all of you have been told chapter 1, you should keep to 1,000 words, right? Is that correct? Yeah, because for my one, I had to do 1,500 words. So I had a little more sort of leeway there. So yours, you have to keep to 1,000 words because your overall word count has been given as 10 to 12,000. Correct? Maximum number is 12,000. So remember, the London Met will be very strict on the word count. Don't go more than 10% above or below. Okay? All right. Samadhi, how are you?
I did the changes. I have to add another question in the research question and some numbering, and I did the changes there.
Yeah. So always remember, when I would have given feedback when you're writing that particular subchapter, the research aim, research questions, your research questions will be straight from your conceptual framework. That's why it's important. Your conceptual framework has to be done properly so that your research questions all center around that. Then you will have your research aim. And when you're saying your purpose and your aim, the aim, you start off with the two sentences, right? So I'll just I think I can share one or two. So when you're giving your research aim and your research objectives, make sure that both of those things have a proper structure. You have the research objectives always start with a to statement, to do something. So most of the time when we do research, there are few objectives we want to meet. Now, for example, the first one would be to review what is already there. So it's about, like I said, we are finding a gap and we are trying to bridge the gap. So the first place you're going to start is what is there existing. That is the existing literature, articles, everything that is there. From that point, we are going to identify what are the gaps or things that can be further reviewed or researched. And that is where your conceptual framework comes into place. Your conceptual framework will tell what are the things that you are trying to justify or validate from the research. That means what is already there in the literature. Or if there is a gap, is there something that I can uncover with my research findings? So my qualitative, my quantitative research findings will help understand how to fill those gaps in the literature. So one of my objectives is to understand what is already there. Another objective is going to be to test my conceptual framework, right? So to test the conceptual framework and validate. Okay. Then how many of you are doing qualitative? The interviews? If you're doing qualitative, just raise your hand so I can know. I think one or two is not doing, all are doing qualitative. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All are doing qualitative, right? As well as quantity, right? So the difference between quanti and quali is quantitative will give you values. It will give you in number form your results. But when you do qualitative, it gives a different flavor. It will give you an added line of thinking or an added aspect to what you got in the quantitative. So by doing qualitative, you're actually seeing a different side of the research. So that's an important aspect also. By doing qualitative to find out further from the research subjects themselves, something that will add value. Okay. And then another one is to enhance the body of knowledge, because you can always say, however much research is done, sometimes certain research specific to our country, specific to our industry, there may be gaps. So by doing your research, you are now helping to improve the quality and the breadth of study in your particular area. So that is also an objective that you can give. And you can say to identify further areas of further study. Yeah, where you can expand. That means people in the future can read your research and expand on it further or go into areas further. So when you give your research objectives, give about 4 objectives in that line. So one should be to review existing literature and to understand what has been done. Then the second one should be the objective is to test out your conceptual framework. Third one could be to identify some more additional learning that can be taken from the qualitative in-depth interviews to uncover some that you see your qualitative will uncover things that the numbers might not tell you. Yes, that's why you do qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative people will give a very it could be a very objective, just a number, which is good. Qualitative, they talk with feeling, they talk with real situations, and they express more. So from that you can get a little bit more understanding, right? And then the final one is to add to the body of knowledge and to provide maybe opportunity or to show where further research can be done in the future. Okay. So have a structure like that for your objectives. Okay. So Samadhi, you're okay in terms of the changes and everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Lahiru, how about you? Lahiru?
If they can hear you now. No, it's not. I think
I
you think this is my own. This is true. You want your camera on? No. Then mic is not talking. I guess. I think it's a red color thing should come. Right?
Hello, Lahiru. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Can hear. Your camera is off now.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Are you in a classroom or?
No, I think I'm with the staff. I guess. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. All right. You're in the office area, is it?
Yeah. That's right.
Okay. All right. So, Lahiru, how about you? How was your chapter 1?
Chapter 1, I did the changes and amendments.
Okay.
I did, and according to your recommendations, I added some areas and did all the changes. It's complete now.
All right. Okay. So, now that we are okay with chapter 1, we are going to the next chapter, which is your literature review. But before that, I'm going to jump ahead a little and talk you through your chapter 3, the methodology and your conceptual framework. So, if you don't mind, any of you can share your conceptual framework on the screen now, and we can use that as a guidance to go through with the others. Would anybody like to share their conceptual framework on the screen? I think all of you have sharing rights. Yeah? Who would like to go forward? Who would like to share their conceptual framework? And we'll discuss that. And then I'll give you some tips on that as well. Oh, Lajjavendapa, one of you can share. Samadhi, will you share your one? I think I have it also in the. I have the research proposals. Would you like to share? See if I can pull out. Let's see. Samadhi, are you going to share
Something
your
went
screen?
wrong. No. The something went wrong. I can't share the screen right now. That's
Okay.
called error or something. Yeah.
Jami, can you, is it permission is given for them to share their screens?
Just a minute, sir. I'll check.
Okay. Let's see. Is it okay now?
No, sir. Still, that error is coming.
All right. Let me see whether I'll download and share from here. I'm using black screen background, so it might be a little dark, but let's see. Right. Samadhi, I think this is your one. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that, yeah? Okay. So
Yeah.
one thing is all the tables, diagrams, frameworks, everything, maintain the same font type, make it very consistent. You need to use the fonts that have been recommended by the uni. I'm nitpicking here a bit because I don't want you all to lose marks on the formatting and the following of the guidelines. So normally Times New Roman is not used. So use either Arial. You can use Arial as a font type, or Calibri even is okay, but I prefer Arial. It's a little more, clearer on the screen. So now you're giving your independent variable and your dependent variable, right? So now when you look at your literature review, you're looking at how inclusive leadership, cultural intelligence, presumption and cognizance, curiosity and communication impact employee engagement, and how will it impact. So when you're doing this, your literature should be around here. What is already existing that talks about leadership, talks about culture, intelligence, presumption, and curiosity and communication. Okay? And has there been anything that, because this is to set, number one, what does this mean? What does inclusive leadership mean? What has been said about it? What has not been said about it? Cultural intelligence. What has already been said about it? What has not been said about it? Are there connections to employee engagement? Has that been researched before? And then you see whether there is anything further that you feel has not been touched, or how a combination of these impacts it. Maybe in isolation, they're talking about inclusive leadership and how it impacts employee engagement, but maybe not with all of these. So now your independent variables and your dependent variable are your focus for your literature review. So look at journal articles, because number one, those are empirical studies. Empirical means they have been done in the past and it's backed by data. It's backed by data and research. That's an empirical study. So journal articles are always good because you publish a journal article which has been based on a research study. It can be over a time or at a particular time, but that's an important thing to use in your literature review. Then another type of literature review literature that you can use is conceptual articles. So these are not tested, but these are like good ideas. Okay, so you might come across articles which are there on some concepts which have not been tested. So maybe this can be spoken about, but it has not been tested with research subjects. So then that's an area that you might want to explore and see through my research and doing a quantitative study or a qualitative interview. I will see how this concept can be tested. Even that's what you're doing with your conceptual framework. You are drawing up a concept and you're trying to test it out with the quantitative and qualitative research that you do. Then there can be reviews of other journal articles. So there can be reviews written about other journal articles. So those are basically the three types that you can use in your literature review. Journal articles which have been based on research and data. That means they have done research, they have extracted data, and the article has been written with the foundation of data. Another one would be concepts, but not proven by data, not tested. So the concept is a good idea, but it has not been tested. Even those concepts are okay for your literature review, because your research is then going to say whether you want to explore that concept further, whether that concept is part of your conceptual framework or something that your conceptual framework will help test. And then the third one would be review of other journal articles there. Now, can I just know from all of you, how far are you on the literature review? I hope you are done a good part of your literature review. You're in the process. Yes? Jalia, how are you? On the literature?
Yeah, I started that. Yeah.
Okay. So they
Almost
have given you
done 50%.
roughly around 40 articles, is it? That
Yeah,
you should
around
refer?
40. Yeah.
Okay. You guys are lucky, Yane. I had to do about, I had about, I don't know, I had about 100 references in my research.
Ah.
Yeah, close to about 100. And articles which I referred was anywhere above 60, definitely. So, so 40 is good number, but remember you have to keep cracking at it, okay?
Okay.
Make your points. If you can do a table, I didn't do that. My supervisor actually advised to try to keep an Excel sheet of your journal article so that you have a sort of a summary that you can glance through and see, okay, this is the article, this is the reference, the authors, and which part of your conceptual framework is it impacting or dealing with. So you can do a table like that. That will help you maintain your references so that you will know and tick off which ones you have completed. I actually did it in my CR book. I wrote down my conceptual framework, and then I was thinking of what are the articles that are impacting that, what are the references for each one, just jotting down separately on pages for each variable in my framework, what articles I am considering or sort of looking at. Because remember, when you go into it, you will find that it's never ending sometimes. So you need to know which articles to pick. That's an important decision to make also. All right. So I know that you will not have enough time to read through a full journal article. Sometimes articles could be around, and if it's a published book or a paper, it can be anything by like more than 50 pages, 100 pages even. So how do you go about that? All right. So here's a small guideline. Things in the article that you should read. Read the introduction. Okay. You can write this down even. Read the introduction. Okay. Read the methodology. Read the introduction. Read the methodology. Because when you read the intro, it will give you an idea about what this article is talking about, what is the research area, and whether it is something that is relevant to you. When you read through the methodology, you will see what is their conceptual framework and what are the variables that they have discussed and whether that has an impact on your study. Then read the discussion part. Okay. The discussion will tell the real findings and the analysis that they have done. Okay. And then the fourth area that you should look at is the limitations. My supervisor told me that the limitations are a gold mine, right? Run nidanayak wage. Why do you call it a gold mine? Because you can actually find things that have not been researched, the limitations. And then what happens is these can be points for your research. Okay. So if you know that there's a limitation, you can bring it in. Look here, this research said this. However, there's a limitation like this. And therefore, my conceptual framework is going to deal with filling that gap. So that's one way that you can look at when you do your literature review, how you break down each article that you're going to read, because you need to have a method to do it. Otherwise, you'll spend time reading one article too much and it might, you might miss out on some things. You have access to the London Met site? Yes? Yeah. So on the London Met site, there is a link that you can go for research platforms, right? Yeah. So go to those and try to find journal articles through that. Sometimes it might not be easy. So you might have to refer on Google Scholar. JSTOR is not available now, I think. So Google Scholar and ResearchGate, places like that to find your research articles. Okay.
Okay.
Give me a minute. Okay. All right. So now, in your introduction, when you're explaining about the company, the organization that you're reviewing, keep the introduction, the business problem part where you're discussing about the company to a limit. Whatever you need to do further, you can bring in as, say, bring tables in or diagrams or figures, and anything else you can put into your appendix. So your appendix, your first one can be about the company, right? Always remember, whatever you put into the appendix is for people to refer to. So there has to be a link. Don't just put things in the appendix if there's not going to be a link to your main research paper. So say you put something about your company that you're referring to, then you can bring in the references from the annexure or the appendix into that part of the business problem that you're writing when you're explaining about the company. So additional data you can always put in the appendix about the company so that you free up the word count in your introduction part. Okay. I think I don't know whether I told you that, because you can rely a lot on internal company reports like the annual reports or any research findings that they have done, any surveys that they have done, internal surveys or external party run surveys. If there's been anything done in the industry or by the central bank, you can refer to those things, right? So central bank reports, market level or country level reports that are done, because I know a lot of you are doing customer service, you're doing digital adoption, you're doing about senior citizens, you're doing about generations, right? So for all of those, there might be existing research reports or surveys or annual report information that you can refer to. Okay. So remember, part of doing a research is broadening where you collect your information. How do you collect? But this is reference. It's not your data. It's not, you can't use that in the discussion, but this is more like part of your literature review and the part where you're gathering the industry data. So basis that you will do your research and your discussion will be on the findings of your surveys and the questionnaires, how you compare that with all this data. Okay. Right. You can also use interviews. Say, for example, now you're doing about digital adoption or about customer service. You can interview an expert in the area. If you don't have, say, a particular article or a research done around a particular area, you can always go with expert interview. But there also you'll have to do an interview and you'll have to extract that transcript and refer to that. When you're interviewing a person, you can keep that person anonymous also and refer to that person as an expert. Or if it's a published one, it's okay, you can use that reference. But if you're interviewing a person, you need to refer to that person and have a proper log of the conversation with you, right? So you don't have to submit any recordings or anything, but the transcript can be included as part of the appendix, and then you can refer to that. So when you're referring, it'll be nice to have a method to refer. So what I'm saying here is like, say I do an interview with somebody and then I'm going to refer. So if you can break down the transcript and put subheadings, then when you're referring in your research write-up, you can always refer appendix 2 and you can say appendix 2.3. So 2.3 might be a conversation around the current situation in the market. 2.4 can be the situation in the bank. Okay. And then you can refer that. So you can say appendix 2.4 and refer to it like that when you're bringing in those points in your literature review or in your overall discussion. Okay. Is that clear? Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing this. Samadhi, I'll give you a chance a little bit later if you have any queries around your conceptual framework, what you might want to look at. So your in general, your inclusive leadership is something again, I would say when you're referring to literature about leadership, there's a lot written about transformational leadership and inclusive leadership. So you can refer to, there's a lot of empirical studies, but try to also find some modern contemporary literature journal articles, say within the last 10 years. There's a lot of stuff written now. Okay. So you can refer those articles. All right. So let me stop sharing this. I'll go to another one. I think I have Tilini's one also. Okay, so Tilini, for your one, I would like to recommend. See, the conceptual framework. When you say framework is a diagram, right? It's like a drawing, because when you put it, and I'll tell you this. This is something that as human beings, we are very visual, right? We are visual people. Humans are visual. So we take a lot of information from what we see, right? And even from that, pictures actually speak a lot more than words, right? So if you draw a diagram of your conceptual framework, you can actually see the links and the patterns. Okay. So it's good to do that rather than just typing out as a list what your framework is, because the expectation also, and I'll just share your one. Remember, all of this is done to help us with our research. So don't worry about my showing you these things. It's for our mutual learning, right? So all of us will learn together through this process. That's what I would like all of you to do, right? You're not competing against each other, right? We are competing against the clock to make sure that we achieve the goal of submitting our research on time. Okay. So I think in your proposal, you haven't given the conceptual framework. I'll just show it to you on screen from what you shared.
So the diagram also in the,
Is it there?
yeah, sir. After this page.
Okay, let me see. Okay. Now here, the conceptual framework, name it properly. Okay, so have the headers proper. You can be a little more elaborative on the diagram also. For example, you can title these independent variable, mediating variable, and the dependent variable on the top. Okay, so do that part of it. And these are your sub variables. Now remember, when you have sub variables, this is for the quantitative and the qualitative, there should be questions in your survey that address all your sub variables. Okay, so when you're writing out your questions, write them out to meet these sub variables. All right, so at least maybe 2 to 3 questions for three questions at least for each of these variables. All right, that would be a good guideline, because then see, too many questions also, and the respondents will not answer. So you need to manage that part also. All right, so you don't need to do both of these, right? You can discuss. And another thing I'd like to share with you, I know this is like, you might think I'm nitpicking, but this is something I also learned, because I did the very same thing and I was told not to do it. So in a research paper, bullet points are not that favorable. Okay, so instead of putting these as bullet points, put it as subheadings within your conceptual framework. Okay, and another guideline I'll give you is, and this is something that I did continuously. Okay, let me share my screen with you now. I think it'll be a good time to share now. So this is something that I did, and I'll share with you now. Right. So what I did was, from the very beginning, I maintained the structure for my research paper in total. So every chapter that I'm submitting, every part that I submit, although the conceptual framework doesn't count, I just ask for your conceptual framework drawing so I can go through it with you. And I will give you feedback by the end of today. All of you will get your feedback. So what I did was, I kept space for every part and I kept just updating the same document. So you can see here, I kept a page for acknowledgement, although I haven't written it. This is my first chapter submission. Okay. And then executive summary, I just kept a page. And my table of contents, you can see that I'm updating it only as I go along, I'm updating it. So here's my first chapter. My first chapter, this was the structure of my chapter. And I've kept 1.8 as annexures, but that will go down when I keep on submitting chapters. This will become chapter 7 or something, right? So when you maintain this structure, it becomes easier towards the end because you're going to be pushed for time. You're going to be, struggling to finish off everything. But if you do it like this, you don't have to worry about at the end rushing to do formatting and setting and all of that. So keep updating it as you go along. So now when you're submitting your chapter 2, update it into the main paper that you're doing. Okay, so that it follows that structure and you keep updating it. So now, as you can see, for my first chapter itself, I've updated the figures, I've updated the tables. Okay, and I've given the references, table 1.1, table 1.2. This is the format you should use. So your if in your business research, that means in your chapter 1, your business issue or the research problem, if you don't have any tables or figures, it's okay. But if you have, then the referencing will be like that, 1.1, 1.2. And then if it's in chapter 2, 2.1, 2.2. So figure 2.1, like that. You have to have that way of naming everything. And then list of abbreviations, if there are any abbreviations that you're using. Okay. And then you go to your business issue or the introduction, and then you write about that. You can see I have a figure here, but you can disregard that. So what I'm saying is that have structure like this continuously. Follow the same structure that you would, so that at the very end, you don't have to do again any more formatting. Is that clear, everybody? Yeah. Does that sound like something you can use? Yeah. Because I want you all to, and like you see here, I actually use this to make sure that I don't miss any comments. So I am giving you comments like this. When I give you a comment like this, what I did when my supervisor was supervising me, I actually went and did the changes. And then after doing the changes, I'd make sure I put a note here so that I know that I have completed that change. I don't miss any of the changes then. And then once I have done all those changes in my main document, this is I'm using for reference, but in my main research paper, I do the changes and I keep on updating it. So you can see how I have done. Now I have found out a mistake, how I have done something wrong here and how it has been corrected. So you can see at the end of it, how it should be, and how in the middle of the page, middle of a paragraph, how the referencing should be, and with names, multiple names, how it should be. So if it's more than one person who has written a paper and you say Nadler et al., then you put brackets the year like this. But if the whole thing is in brackets, then you say Nadler et al., comma, and then the year. And the whole thing will be in brackets. Okay. So there are multiple ways of writing it like that. All right. So keep that format, and then you can keep on updating it like that. So I think I'll show you what I meant by the research objectives. Here you go. Here you go. All right. So I had 4 objectives, and the 4 objectives are given like this. You're going to explore what is there already about your conceptual framework. Number 1, what you are exploring. Then number 2, what are you trying to do through your conceptual framework, the link you're trying to establish. Number 3, about your Conti and your Colli, what are you trying to do there? And number 4, to recommend a way forward. That way forward can be for your organization, it could be for the country, it could be for future literature review. Okay, so remember to have a structure like that and to follow that structure right throughout. All right, it'll help you as you keep on writing the research. Okay, so these are some friendly tips that I'm giving. Go by the friendly guide. That helped me a lot. It was like my reference book right until the end. So refer to the friendly guide that was shared to you by Next and follow that so that you don't miss out on any of the sub elements that you need to put in. Okay, so I've been talking a lot. I'd like all of you to also now say anything that you need to clarify. Yeah. Anyone has to submit the conceptual framework still? Okay, I think 1, 2, 3, 4. Jalia?
Yeah, I have to submit it, sir.
Okay.
I will submit it.
Okay, so if you can submit it today, good, because then I'll give feedback. This weekend is a little tight for me, so I'll try to submit as much as possible. I'll send the feedback today as much as possible, but if not, by tomorrow, definitely I'll send. So anything that any of you would like to ask?
Yes.
Yeah, it's your time now. So far what I have explained, is it clear? Yeah. All right. So now what you, a few things that you need to keep in mind, your conceptual framework, you have a graphic, a figure, so that you can clearly show it in a graphical formation, and the link between the two. So usually you have your independent variable, you have your dependent variable. Now, when you bring in a mediating variable, what you're saying is this impacts this and then it impacts this, right? But you're trying to find the connection between the independent variable and your dependent variable. But in establishing that, it's like a dotted line, because it's not a direct, there's a mediating variable that is impacting it, right? So when you draw the conceptual framework like that, you will see the connection and the amount of questions you would need to write or put into your quantitative, so that you get answers or you get data around those variable points. All right. Sometimes a funny thing can happen. Now you draw a conceptual framework, you have submitted it in your research proposal, and now you're trying to validate it, establish the data around it. Now, when you do your quantitative, and maybe more when you do your qualitative, you might identify another variable, something that you did not have in your conceptual framework to begin with. Okay? And that's the beauty of research. So sometimes when you do the data gathering, okay, from your quantitative, from your qualitative, and mainly it'll be more from the qualitative, I believe, you will find something that is impacting your dependent variable, which you had not thought of, or the literature had not spoken of. And when you do that, now, my gosh, you're seeing that you have a new variable. What do? You've already put your conceptual framework in, and you put it into your chapter methodology, right? So you can do that. In the discussion part, you keep your original conceptual framework as part of your chapter 3 methodology. You have to keep it there. Keep it there, because there's nothing wrong with that. What has happened is something unique has happened. You have discovered another impacting variable. Now what you can do is, in your discussion, you can redraw your conceptual framework and bring in that new variable. Bring in that independent variable and say, from the quantitative and qualitative research, a new further variable was identified that has an impact on the dependent variable. And hence, you are now, so you can say the author or the writer now presents an amended or updated conceptual framework, taking into consideration this new variable. Okay? So you're actually finding something new which you would like to share. So that's how you address that part of it. If at all you do come up with something which was not in your original conceptual framework, you can now bring it, incorporate it into your research discussion, and present it as an updated conceptual framework. Okay? Give me 1 minute, please. Sorry about this. Sorry about that. I know, I suppose you can relate to this. When you're in a bank, even your weekend is not a weekend. So keep getting calls. So yeah. Anything you'd like to ask now? I still have a few things I want to discuss, but I would like to hear from all of you now. Okay, and just to give you an update on the dates, we had written down 17th May to submit the questions to me. Yeah, I hope you made note of that. 17th May, and this session I want to keep this hour to discuss the questionnaire and what you're going to do in the questionnaire, right? So 17th May, you should be now with the conceptual framework designing the questions. Okay, so once I give you feedback on the conceptual frameworks, design the questions, right? So I'll give you a structure for the questions also. I'd like to find out, what are you going to use for your questionnaire? What method are you going to do the data collection? Google form, MS form, or Survey Monkey, or anything like that? Lahiru, have you decided?
I'll use Google form.
Google form, okay.
Yes.
Kanchana?
Google Forms.
Okay. Samadhi?
I also go with the Google form.
Okay.
Google
Jalia,
Forms.
all Google.
Yeah, I'm also doing Google.
Dilini?
So I will use both Google and paper format also.
Okay. Paper format because of the
Yeah, that's senior citizen.
senior citizens. Okay. All right. So now, a few things that you should have in the questionnaire, right? But before that, none of you want to say anything? No questions? Lahiru, are you in the middle of a big crowd or anything there? They gave you one of the small rooms in the office, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Don't worry. You can shout a little. Okay. I'm sorry. I think the uni campus is going to inform you which day is going to be the physical. So they wanted to have the next session as session 3 as physical, where all of you would come to the campus. Okay. Yeah. So session 3, I think 31st May. Right. So 31st May we'll meet on the campus premises. Right. So any questions so far? Nothing? Anything that you're coming up with when you're reading the literature? Any challenges you're facing or anything that you're observing? Jalia, all okay?
Yeah, still I'm okay, sir.
Still okay. Still okay. Right. Kanchana, how are you? All okay?
Up to now, okay, sir.
Up to now, introduction is the easy part. Okay. Yeah, I'm hoping and I believe you all will have questions towards the next part of it. Definitely. You will see anything that you'd like to discuss. Just keep the WhatsApp group also active. If you do have anything, mention it there. Okay. Mention it there and I will respond so that all of us, we learn together, right? So remember that. So let's discuss about the questionnaires, right? Now, if I remember correctly, all of you are doing quantitative and qualitative, right? Yes? Anybody doing only quantitative or only qualitative? All are doing both, right? Okay, right. So now when you're doing the quanti and the quali, a few things that you should keep in mind, right? Number one, the quantitative, you will have to submit the questionnaire for the quantitative and the in-depth questionnaire guideline for the qualitative, right? I'll show you a sample of the in-depth questionnaire, and I'll show you my quantitative also, the questionnaire format. So what I did was, for the quantitative, I did a small preamble at the beginning. Now, why I'm saying that this is important is, since all of you are bankers, and there are a lot of guidelines required around data protection, right? So one thing is, we have to maintain, as researchers, we have to maintain the ethics of research. Okay, so ethics in research means maintaining anonymity of our research target. Maintaining the anonymity is important. Making them feel comfortable. And also, even though we say we want to get everybody to respond, we need to give the option to them to respond or not. Okay? So now what I don't want you to do is, in your questionnaire, if you have questions where you keep it optional to respond, you might have a problem where you're not getting the data. But at the same time, you need to give them the option to opt out. So give them the option to opt out at the very beginning. In your sort of introduction to the questionnaire, the survey questionnaire, in your write-up, say that you're doing this for academic research purposes, identify yourself, identify the next campus and the purpose for the research, the title of your research, and why it is important for you to gather this data. And at the same time, mention that it will be kept anonymous, and after your research, it will be used only for the purpose of the research, and after it is done, all data, personal data, will be destroyed and not kept with you. Okay? So that's an important thing to mention in your survey. And another important thing to mention would be that at any point, if they don't feel comfortable in answering the questions, they have the option to opt out of the questionnaire. So you allow people to discontinue the questionnaire. That means some people might not complete the questions. Okay? You give that option to them, and you will find that people will feel comfortable with answering the questions after that. All right? So I'll just share with you now something that I wrote. Okay, so this is what I included in my, I did an MS Forms because mine was an internal questionnaire to my colleagues. Okay, hope you can see my screen. Right? So I had a few headings that I did. So I wrote like this to the respondents, and I said the ethics and the scope of my research, right? And what is my goal? I'm looking at gathering that data that will help me in this area that I'm researching. Then I say about respect for privacy and protection of personal data. Now, you know that the Personal Data Protection Act is something that all our bankers are facing. So we have to be very mindful of the data that we collect. So say that all of this will only be used for academic research purpose and will not be shared with third parties without their explicit consent, right? And you're going to maintain anonymity. That means you're not going to capture their names and put it in your research paper. Okay. So this is a voluntary survey and you can skip at any time and you can discontinue, and there will be no identifiable data to link a person with their responses, and say that we are committed to the security of the data and the data is being kept securely, and then it will be destroyed also, right? And then this part is important: informed consent. You're telling, by proceeding with this survey, you acknowledge that you have read and understood this introduction and you have given the consent to participate in the research. And then I thank them. Okay. So this is a structure that you can use. All right. When you're doing the questionnaire, have that as the commencement, and then from that point onwards only have the questionnaire. Okay. Is that clear? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Lairu, was that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Samadhi?
Yes, sir.
Kanchana?
Yes, sir.
Jalia? Was that clear? Tilini?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay. All right. So that's an important part when you do a quantitative research, to have a nice preamble at the beginning that outlines the purpose, the ethics, the data protection, and the voluntary nature of it, and getting the consent of the participants before they start answering the questions. All right. So if you have that in place, then it makes it easier for you, knowing that you have done the right thing, and that you, because even this has to be a part of your appendix. Okay. So this is included in your appendix. You have to include this in your appendix. This plus the questionnaire. All right. So you will get marks for that, for having a proper structured questionnaire with a proper introduction to it. All right. And then what I said about the conceptual framework is, now this was my conceptual framework. And based on this, I identified the sub-elements, what needs to be questioned. So all my questions I had around that. So you can see that for each of these sub-elements, like here I have awareness, clarity, choice, I had 4 questions each. All right. And then for the mediating variable, I had questions, and then I changed some of it so that I reworded it so that I could get a proper 1 to 5 response, right? On a strongly agree or a strongly disagree on a Likert scale like that, I could get a proper response, right? So you will find that in the end, you will need to have how many questions, and based on that, you can decide how many questions you need for your qualitative research as well. Okay, so this was my quantitative, and then I'll show you the qualitative as well. All right, so have a good structure in your quantitative, and remember, for each sub-variable that you have in your conceptual framework, you need to have at least 3 to 4 questions. Okay. All right. Okay, so then let's look at any questions around the quantitative study? Shaped. Is it okay? ඔගලන් ගෙදර මිනිස්සුත් එක්ක කතා කරනවාද සාමාන්‍යයෙන්? Huh? Quite silent, a lot of you. Huh? I know Saturday mornings are not the best time to do research paper discussions, right? There are better things to do on a Saturday. But still, it'll be good if you can speak up a little, ask anything that you have, right? I'm there to help you and guide you. But sometimes I might also miss out something, and it's always good if you ask a question, then maybe something that I forgot also I can then share with you, or you will trigger something that I learned from doing my research. Okay. Now your Moodle submissions and all that, it's under control, right? You know how to submit it. Please remember the sign now document is an important thing. You need to update it properly, what we discussed, because that track record has to be kept and the campus is going to check it, right? So make sure that once this session is over and you get the sign now document from the campus, within the, I think they say within 4 days you need to complete it. So don't delay that. Within that time, submit it. Okay, and you're only submitting it for the current session. So you'll get the sign now and you'll have to give the details of the session we did today, all that was discussed, and the next date that we are going to meet, you have to put in the date. So just so that you don't miss out, our next session is going to be on which day?
31st May.
Yeah, 31st. Okay. And most likely it's going to be a in-person session. So we will meet at next campus. So 31st May, 9:30 to 11:30. And remember that by 31st May, your chapter 2 is going to be due. All right. So I'll ask you to submit chapter 2 by the 31st of May. That is your literature review. 31st May, we are going to discuss the methodology. That is chapter 3. We'll discuss writing the methodology, and the onion, we'll go through the onion, and I'll show you a small presentation on the research onion and how you need to identify your areas in the research onion. Okay. And what you need to write, because the most important thing is not only showing the diagram, but identifying why you selected a particular methodology, why you selected to do this type of research, or why are you doing what do you call it, a chronological research, or a point in time research. So all of those things you will need to justify and say the reasoning behind your selections. Okay, so we'll discuss that in detail on the 31st. Right now, for the qualitative, you also need to submit a basic framework for your qualitative. Okay, so 17th May, you need to submit the quanti and the qualitative. So how we're going to do it is like this, right? Yeah, you submit the questions, because I will give you feedback, and then after the feedback, what I want you to do is keep 22nd May as the target to send out the questionnaire, right? 22nd May, you need to send out the questionnaire so that you give people time to respond to it, because that's going to take time. Okay. And in the meanwhile, then you can schedule your interviews. All right. So while you're waiting for the people to respond to the quantitative, you're going to schedule your qualitative interviews, in-depth interviews, and get that done. Because I'm giving you a heads up, that takes time. Because you have to schedule time, you have to arrange a time, and it's about listening to the person, letting them speak. So say even to have a good 30 minutes conversation, it might actually take 45 to 1 hour. And then you have to analyze that. You have to transcribe it. So that will take time. So right now itself, you need to start on those activities. So let me show you the qualitative in-depth framework. This is something that you would need to submit also. Okay. And this is a very basic structure that I kept, how my supervisor advised. So this is also going to be part of your appendix. All right. So since I had multiple variables, I had to keep a lot of time. So I had about 1 hour set aside for the conversation. All right. So you can have a in-depth interview guide like this so that you will also know what you need to do in the interview. Have a very formal structure. Okay. So when we do interviews, sometimes you need to break the ice. So that is that first point, preliminary greeting and small talk. So you're going to have a small conversation. How are you? How are things? How has work been? And just have a small chit chat, like to set the tone and get the person comfortable to start the conversation. So you can start recording from this point onwards also, and just to capture this whole point that you're mentioning. So the things that I put in my preliminary, you share the overall purpose. You can use your introduction that you wrote in the questionnaire as a guideline, saying that this is done for research, this is my research area, and my aim is to do this. How is it going to help me, and how it will be used with anonymity and maintaining the ethical quality, the ethics of the whole research process. Request their permission to record the interview. Okay. You need to request permission to record the interview and say that once the transcript has been used for your research analysis, the recordings will be deleted. And something that I introduced was, I said to ensure that they are present in the moment, to sort of close their eyes and breathe a little deep and calm themselves down, and to be present in the moment. And when they are ready to tell me, and then only I will start the interview. Okay. Remember, when you're doing a qualitative, the question shouldn't be too long. The question should be short to allow for the respondent to speak more. So have very focused, simple questions that will generate more content. So there are open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. The whole purpose of doing a in-depth interview, you need to have which type? What do you think should be there? Open-ended or closed-ended questions? Anybody would like to answer that? What should it be? Open-ended questions or closed-ended questions? What's the difference between the two? Open-ended, closed-ended. So I'll ask a question like this. Did you have breakfast? Is that open-ended or closed-ended? Jalia? Open-ended or closed-ended?
Close-ended.
Yeah, because it's all either yes or no question. Yeah, it's only yes or no. But if I ask, what did you eat for breakfast? That is open-ended. How did you find your breakfast, or how was your breakfast? Another open-ended question. So remember, your question should be open-ended, and it should allow for the respondent to give a deep answer. It should also challenge them to think. If your question makes them think, look up and think before they answer, that means you're generating proper content. Okay. So you can see here, the second part is the interview process and the 3 areas, my independent variables, and I'm asking questions around that. Now, remember, not like the quantitative, you don't have to have many questions, but the question that you ask should cover the areas that you are trying to focus on in your conceptual framework. Okay. So although I showed you my conceptual framework, it had multiple subvariables. You can see here, I don't have questions for each subvariable. I have a general question around one of the main variables. So my independent variable was around coaching. I had one question around coaching. I had a follow-up question just in case I wanted to generate a little more content. If I felt that my first question didn't generate the responses that I thought would help me, I have a second question that I'm going to ask, which will help me gather more information around my independent variables. My second question here around leadership is my mediating variable. I had a question around that. And then I had second and third questions there because I wanted to go a little deeper there. Then my final third point in B is my dependent variable. So I had again 3 questions there. Now, this is the main interview part and I kept 40 minutes for it. Okay. So 10 minutes for the preliminary, 40 minutes for the main interview. And then for the conclusion, I had another 10 minutes. So in that 10 minutes, it's about clarifying any gray areas that the interviewee face. That means the respondent is facing because of the, was it clear to them? Would you like me to rephrase the question, or did you feel that you gave an answer that is acceptable to you, not to me, to them, right? And then it's nice if you can summarize the discussion just to make sure that you have captured everything that the person said. So that means, although you're going to record the conversation, keep a notebook and take notes. Okay? Sometimes there will be things that you will want to refer back in the conversation and you'll need the transcription for that, but it's good to make notes so that you know where you need to refer. Okay? Because the whole interview is not going to give you all the content you need. There will be a lot of, just stuff around, and you need to filter and take what's important. That takes time. Okay? So it's good to take down a few points so that you know which areas in the interview you want to refer to. All right? And again, finally, in conclusion, say that you are going to keep this at the highest level of ethics and confidentiality. Thank them for taking part in your interview and then close the conversation. Okay. So this is the structure that I used. You don't have to use the very same thing, but have an in-depth interview guideline. And this is part of what you have to submit to me. Okay. So I will give you feedback on that also. On the 7th, by the 17th, you need to submit the questionnaire. So the qualitative one is not going to be too difficult. It'll be a structure like this. Quantitative, you need to submit the full questionnaire. I'd like to see the questions. Okay. All right. I hope that was clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So then a few tips on the quantitative one, on the quantitative questionnaire. Let me just some of my notes. Yes, what was it? Yes, on the quantitative, right? So your questionnaire is going to be in English only, or will it be in Sinhala and Tamil also, or is it only going to be in English? If it's in English, just raise your hand so I know. All in English?
No, sir, both Sinhala and English.
Sinhala and English. Kanchana
Yeah,
also?
Single and English.
Okay. Okay. So then it'll be good to mention in your write-up when you talk about the quantitative survey that you're providing it in English and Sinhala. Are you expecting that there won't be any person who'd require Tamil translation? if necessary, you might need to have it also, just in case. Okay. So those are things that will make it uniform, right? You might not need to give out the Tamil questionnaire, but it will be good to say that you have it also. If required, that you can provide the Sinhala version or the Tamil version to make the respondents more comfortable with answering it. Okay. So that's something that you can include, right? Okay. And then let's see if I can download another conceptual framework and just take you through. Okay, so Kanchana, I think your conceptual framework, you haven't done a diagram, right?
Yes, sir, I have to display it as a graphical way.
Yeah, so you need to do that graphical. Yes. Okay, so you don't need to do anything very fancy. You can use Word and just draw boxes and draw arrows and do a diagram like that, because it's important to have a graphical description of your conceptual framework. It will help you also focus on it, right? Because when you see the variables, you might identify different patterns in the variables. Okay. Sometimes we think that the independent variables, now that is something I found in my conceptual framework. I thought one of the variables had an impact on maybe one of the mediating variables. But then when I realized, as I was reading, I realized that one of these independent variables had an impact on three mediating variables of mine. So then I had to understand my research questionnaire. I had to draw out data around that. So that's why it's important to have that graphical drawing of it. It will help you connect the dots. Okay. So when you see it visually, you will be able to connect better. Okay. Let me go through another one. So Kanchana, I went through your one. I'd appreciate you do a graphical drawing also. And if you can send that to me, right, you can upload it here itself. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So, Lahiru, I think I have your one now. Let me just share that. Lahiru, this is your one?
Yes, yes.
Okay, right. So again, put headlines for the main areas. So now you're saying, I didn't read through this, so I'm just doing. Okay, so out of this, your independent variable is strategies to promote internet banking.
Yes. Strategies.
Those are your independent
Is,
variables, right?
yes. Yes.
So then digital banking adoption is the dependent variable.
Yes. Yes.
Your barriers to digital banking?
It's also independent.
Okay. Now, when you look at your conceptual framework, if you your dependent variable, if you test this out, what has an impact on lack of trust or perceived trust or complexity, awareness, cost concerns? They have an independent impact on digital banking adoption.
Yes.
Now, are you trying to say that your strategies will have an impact on digital banking adoption, irrespective of these barriers, is it?
Yes. So my title was it's a barriers to digital banking adoption and the strategies to promote digital banking. So by considering that, I created this framework.
Okay. So when you did the proposal, did you show this conceptual framework?
No.
So when you did the research proposal, did you discuss with your research supervisor, I think it was Dr. Asita, right?
At that time, we didn't discuss anything.
Okay.
We just
submitted. I'm sorry?
We submitted proposals only, so we didn't discuss.
You didn't get any feedback on it?
Yeah, feedback, I got feedback, and I did changes according to the feedback. To have a particular area, geographic area. That's what.
Yeah, because feedback. Now some of these things, you might want to. I'm just thinking like this. There are some of these that you can group together. Now you say lack of trust, perceived trust. Trust is one element, right? Then if you think of privacy, cyber security, those are linked, right? So always when you look at digital banking, there are several areas. One is the person, the platform, the product. The person using it, the platform and the product, the features and all of that. So the platform is about the security aspect and all of that. The person is about whether I trust it or my awareness, my digital awareness, things like that. Then the product itself is about how easy it is to use or technicality, things like that. And then another element could be the cost. So cost is also that can impact me as a person. So I'm just thinking whether if you take all of these barriers and then strategies, whether you are having too many independent variables or you can have something that is a mediating variable. Now say your barriers are the independent variables that have an impact on digital banking adoption, the barriers. Yeah. Then if you look at strategies to promote internet banking, this can be a mediating variable or a mitigating variable, because if you have less security, then the barrier is high. If you have better security, then that barrier reduces. So you'll have to see that connection between those, because what you have given as barriers and what you're giving as strategy, there's a link between the two. which you have to establish whether when one increases, will the other decrease? And because of that, will this be possible? Adoption will increase. So you're saying digital banking adoption, and that variable can either be low or it can be high. What are the things that will impact it to increase it, or what can impact it to decrease it? And identify those variables. Those are independent variables. Then what can have an impact or an influence on those independent variables in a positive way or in a negative way? So I'm thinking whether this conceptual framework, you need to think it a little bit more and see whether what you're bringing here is the independent variables are your barriers to digital banking adoption. So then what will impact or enhance digital banking adoption and reduce the barrier? So that's your strategies. So the link is more, the barrier is the independent, digital banking would be the dependent variable. Your strategies can be the mediating variables. Lack of strategy, and there's an impact on the barriers. Better strategies, and there's an impact on the barriers. So you need to see whether these strategies are the ones. So when you do your research, you might actually find out there could be a different strategy that has an impact on this. You get what I'm saying? Okay, so have a thought about that, right? And maybe we can connect on WhatsApp also. Have a thought about that and see whether that structure is right. You see, because usually your conceptual framework is part of your proposal, research proposal. And when it's in your research proposal, you get some input onto that, whether it's on the right track or whether it's the right variables are being discussed. And then you bring that into your research paper. So I believe that there can be an area here where your independent and dependent variables, and there's a mediating variable. Because these two, what your framework should show is the link between these two, the barrier and the strategies. I believe that's what I see. So just have a look at it again. Okay? Okay. You understood what I said there, right?
Yes.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then, Jalia.
Yeah, I need to upload that, sir, because my laptop was not working properly.
Okay.
That's why I didn't upload it. Within the day or tomorrow, definitely I will upload it once it's back.
Okay. So, all right. So then you need to upload it. Okay.
Excuse.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, we received the feedback only for the landscape document, and for the proposal, we haven't received any feedback.
What's the landscape document?
That Excel sheet, there's only small information, and for the proposal, we haven't received any feedback on that.
Oh, okay. The Excel sheet is where you gave your research question,
Yes.
the business issue,
Yes.
and then what would be the research title?
Yes.
Who did that part?
The Dr. Asita.
Dr. Asita, okay.
Yes.
And then what would be the focus of your research, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just check that with the next team also. All right.
Okay.
Because when I went through your research proposals, I was also wondering, because some of you had the conceptual framework, some didn't have it.
Yes, that's
so I was also wondering when I read through the proposals, how it was done. And that's why, see, getting the conceptual framework right is one of the most important things. I can actually share with you. I don't know whether you can see this.
Yeah, but the friendly guide for this proposal doesn't mention anything about this conceptual framework.
Oh, okay. So I don't know whether you can see, excuse the handwriting and everything. Make it go up balikuruti, you know, but you can see that. So that was my original conceptual framework. Over here, you can see the TC is transformational coaching. That was my independent variable. And then I said the connection is between the dependent variable, transformational leadership. And I gave the sub variables here, sub elements here, right? Then what I realized is that between this and this, there can be something that can influence. What is it that influences it? And then I realized that this is not the end result, because my topic was about resisting change. So then I realized that what should really happen is something like this. And I did it again. So my transformational coaching and the dependent variable is resistance to change. So Lahiru, similar to what you're trying to do here. Yours is adoption of digital.
Yes.
And so then I had something here, but then there's a mediating variable, which I identified as leadership. So then this impacts this, but through this. So that's why I'm saying that getting the conceptual framework is important, because all your literature reviews and how you do your questionnaire and everything will depend on that. Otherwise, you might do too much in the wrong area and not focus on what is important. So make sure that you get the conceptual framework right. So think it out a little bit. I am seeing that there is, when you identify what is your independent variable and your dependent variable, and how do you reach that, or how do you impact that, it can be a direct impact or it can be an indirect impact. The indirect impact is the mediating variable. So if there's a correlation between these two directly, you will see it. This goes up, this can go up or go down. You need to figure it out. If this goes down, this can go up or go down. But then you find another element which is impacting that. If this is there, then this can be enhanced. Or if this is not there, this can go down. So that is what a mediating variable does. So understanding that logic and how it links is important. Okay. So have a look at it again and see, because sometimes all the elements that you're bringing there, you might not be able to focus on. So that is also possible as long as you have that discussion written out properly. You might want to test some of these variables which you feel have a bigger impact. So what are those variables that you identify? Okay. For the others, was that clear? Yeah. Samadhi, what do you think? Any thoughts?
I'm clear with the things you said, sir.
Okay. Kanchana?
Okay, sir.
Okay.
can-
All right. Jalia, you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right. So I know that all of you haven't, have you all met in person? No, right? And you've not had any lectures together also? No. But the research methods, you had a session or two, right? They took you through the research methods module, right? Yeah. Okay. So another thing I'd like to share with you is actually the 5 of you need to maintain a sort of a camaraderie, a sort of a link during this time. You will find that you need each other's support. And when I mean support, it's more like that physical presence being there, supporting each other to get to the milestones. All right. I know that I completed my project because of the 2 people who were in my particular group for the research. They supported me, I supported them. We would keep behind each other saying, we have to submit it by this day. We'd ask questions, things that are challenging. We just, openly discuss things together so that we have that link and that sort of, we support each other to get to the milestone, right? So anybody, falling behind, even they have somebody that they can reach out to and say, hey, I'm struggling, and just have a chat. Just have a chat, it's important to have that, link together. So that's a little bit of advice that I can give you. So now we need to keep in mind few of the milestones that we have coming up. By the 17th, send me your questionnaire format. So the two, quantitative and qualitative. Do a small write-up at the beginning, like I said, before the questions, and then list out your questions. Your qualitative, have that in-depth question. It's like an interview guide. So your questions are not going to be as descriptive as the quantitative. It's just a framework, a small guideline that you're going to use to guide the interview. Okay. So that have a small introduction, interview, and conclusion part, 3 parts. Structure it nicely so that it will give you something to go by. And I am telling you, it's important to have that. When I did my interviews, this guideline helped me to maintain focus and to ensure that I was following the right track. I didn't get, distracted, and I didn't ask anything out of my focus area. Okay. All right. So the key dates, 17th for the questionnaire, and then we meet on the 31st. And I've also said, I gave another date, right? So when I give you the feedback after the 17th, maybe
22nd.
say by about the 19th, I give you the feedback, 19th or 20th maximum, let's say. By the 22nd, you need to send it out to your respondents, okay? Because it will take time to get the response. Also, you'll have to mention to them a date by which you want it. So give about 7 days. In Sri Lanka, you give more than that and people forget, right? So you need to give say you'd appreciate a response within 4 to 5 working days or 7 days and follow up on it, right? And make it, what I would do is, actually, this is something my supervisor said, time the questionnaire. If you can say that this will only take 5 minutes, people will respond quicker. Okay. So a few tricks you can use when you create the questionnaire, you have a completion sort of a timeline at the bottom you can give. That means 25% completed, 50% completed. You can say to include that when you're structuring the questionnaire on Google Forms, you can say, give a completion tracker. So then while I'm doing the questionnaire, I can see I have completed 25%, I've completed 50%, I completed 75%. So that also motivates me to complete the questionnaire, right? If I see question number 1 of 100, I'm going to say Deyo Saki and I'll stop doing it, right? So that's why you need to keep your questions really tight, maximum 4 questions for each variable. All right. And also remember, my friends, now, if you have a lot of variables, you have to write about it also in your discussion. So that's why it's important to identify the key variables that are in your conceptual framework. Okay. So, yeah, 17th, submit the questionnaires for me to see. I'll give you feedback by the 20th latest. 22nd, you can do the formatting and send it out again. Send it out. And then schedule the interviews. That's important. Schedule the interviews. You'll need time for that, and you need to transcribe the interviews. So that will take time. We are meeting again on the 31st of May. And your chapter 2 is also due by the 31st of May. And we'll be discussing chapter 3. For the survey questionnaire, I'm keeping 1 month. So hopefully you will get all the data within that 1 month. So when I say data collection, it's not only getting the responses, but it's doing the data cleaning also, right? So you have 1 month for the data cleaning. That means after you get the data, you need to clean it, put it into templates, extract the charts and extract the analysis part of it. So you start that and do the interview screening part, the filtering, all of that process, and then you will be ready to do the analysis and do the discussion after that. Okay? All right. So I just want to keep all of you informed. Our 6th session is on the 26th of July. 26th of July, I will be overseas. So I might need to change the time a little bit. I'll discuss that with the next team. And I hope that it will be all right if I change the time a little bit, because I'll actually be I'll be in UK. So 9:30 in the morning would be like a bad time for me to do it. There, it'll be 5.5 hours before that. So that'll be about 4 a.m. in the morning. So I hope it'll be all right if I shift the time a little bit. Would that be okay? Yeah, but I'll confirm that to you in advance. We have more time for that, but I'll let you know. Okay, so that's about it. Do you have any closing questions or remarks? All right. So was the session useful for you? Yeah.
Yes,
Have you
sir.
learned something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So then keep reading, do your literature reviews. All right. And Jalia, you'll submit this latest by tomorrow, the conceptual framework. Yes.
Yeah, sure. I'll update.
Okay. And the others, I'll give you the feedback today and tomorrow. Lahiru, I think with the feedback I have given you now, I believe you need to do a little bit more on that. So if you want, just send me a WhatsApp and let's discuss it. But I think that you need to look at the framework a little bit more. Okay? All right. All right. So happy long weekend and use it productively to do some research. All right. I'll see you all next time and look forward to your submissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.